So first, changing the demographics of the world. So in the past, like before the globalization has really impact on businesses, US, Europe and Japan, like these three developed areas, used to dominate the world trade and FDI picture. But there has been a lot of change as a result of the globalization. And the most important change, first of all, like what does globalization mean? First start from the basic. I'm sure like in the previous sessions it has been stated, but globalization, if I was asked to summarize it in a word, it's kind of integration or interdependence of countries. And the most important implication for companies is elimination of trade barriers and going and doing trade with other countries. So that will be the most important implication of globalization for companies. And this has happened as a result of like improvement in technology, declining in transportation costs, and most importantly, elimination of trade barriers. I will show you some figures about that as well. So in 1970, for instance, the foreign direct investment, the total foreign direct investment flow in the world was $13 billion. And in 2007, it reached to $2 trillion. So you can see the huge and dramatic increase in FDI. And if you look at the FDI statistics of the previous year, 2014, FDI to developing economies is 56% of the all FDI. So all foreign direct investment in the world, 56% of all foreign direct investment goes to developing countries. So this used to be a lot lower in 1970s or 60s. Another statistics is about the developing and transition economies together invested more than $553 billion. So developing countries are not only the ones that are receiving the FDI, they also started to make FDI to other countries. And in the early session, we had a presentation about the China, like Chinese FDI to Africa and other countries. So there's a dramatic increase as well in that sense. So I want to share something about the China. So there are different powers of the world, like United States, developed countries, Germany, Japan, and each of them has a period where they grow very fast. For the United States, it was like after 1870. For Germany, again, it was at the same time. For Japan, it was after 1960s, a high growth era down that took Japan to commanding heights of the global economy. And for China, it was after 1982, and its rise began after the ruling Communist Party completed its 6-5-year plan. So I will share with you a figure which. So this is a figure that shows the share of global GDP of 5 countries, okay? And this is for the 30 years period, and 30 years period for each country, and this 30 years is the period where that country started to grow very fast, like the early stage of their development, or in other words, kind of their transition from a developing economy to a developed economy. And as you can see, the red line is China. And the yellow one is the United States, and others are like the Soviet Union, Japan, and Germany. As you can see, the increase of China is a lot more dramatic than other countries. So the growth of China is a lot more significant compared to the countries in the world. And we see a similar chart in terms of the share of the global trade by countries. So as you can see, again, the red line is China. And compared to the other countries, you see the dramatic increase in 30 years. And this is, I think, this gives us a very good idea about the changing demographics of the world trade. So as a business student, you need to know what's happening in the world, in which direction the world is going, the world trade is going. Because in any kind of project, in any kind of investment, you make projections about the future. And one of the most important and challenging things in business is to make appropriate projections, good projections about the future, right? And that's why it's important to know where the world is going. Of course, China is very well known right now. Everyone knows that it's the big place, but it's important also to make projections about the next China, which countries, which areas are gonna be the leading in the next decades. And if you look at the top languages that are used for business, again, like English definitely is the first one, Chinese is the second, French is the third, Arabic is the fourth. So this can also give you a sense of about the world trade, world businesses, okay? What are the countries that you need to focus as a business manager? And I just briefly want to share some projections about the future. So by 2025, annual consumption in emerging markets will reach $30 trillion. And over the past 2 decades, globalization more than doubled the ranks of the consuming class to $2.4 billion. So in the last 2 decades, the middle class or consuming class reached to 2.4 billion in the world. This is like general target market for any company, like middle class. You want to sell your products or services. And by 2025, like in 10 years, the number will nearly double again to $4.2 billion. So in next 10 years, there's gonna be almost 2 billion new people that are in the middle class, that you can sell your product, that you can sell your services. And where these 2 billion will come from? Not from the US, right? Or not from Europe, not from Japan. They will come from the developing economies or emerging economies. So that's why it's important to know the target in terms of the market. That's an interesting, and I love this picture a lot. Again, it shows the transition of world from mostly dominated by developed economies to a more balanced world where developing economies has a lot more to say. And there are like they represented foreign direct investment and or mergers and acquisitions of Japanese companies into different parts of the world. And the blue lines are from 1985 to 89, and the red circles are from 2007 to 2011. And as you can see, there are just a couple of blue circles in 1980s, and these are in the US, UK, like Hong Kong, a couple of countries. But if you look at the 2000s, there are circles all around the world, right? So the world is not dominated by Europe, US, and Japan anymore. You can see a lot more diversity in terms of business. Again, this is important to know as a future business manager. So what are the implications of these 4 companies? The first one is there is no domestic business anymore. Like the globalization and the effect of globalization on businesses is inevitable. You cannot escape from globalization. What should you do? You should be ready to respond to the globalization. You should be ready to deal with the challenges that globalization has brought. Globalization is both good and bad. So there are opportunities and there are challenges. There are winners of globalization, there are losers of globalization. And if you and your company want to be among the winners from the globalization, you need to be ready to deal with the challenges. You need to know the rules of the game. You need to know the world. You need to be aware of these challenges. And as a company, you need to become international. So that's very important. I talk about lower transportation and communication costs, like this results with lower unit costs, etc. And there are a lot more opportunities. So that's I think the main takeaway from globalization. So I also want to talk about the globalization and services. So when we talk about the trade, we usually talk about the tangible products, right? Like the car or clothes, those kind of tangible products which are manufactured. And that used to be the main way that people think about the trade and globalization or FDI. But this has been changing as well. Services become very important in today's world. In the past, the bulk of services outsourced from one country to another were linked to functions that were repetitive, routine, and relatively uncomplicated, like call centers, main data entry, these kind of things. But today, more complicated and more advanced services are outsourced. So which means again, there are, especially for Indian students, for India, there are great opportunities. And some examples like hospital outsource some radiology work to India. Accounting, marketing, design and R&D functions. Like legal firms are offshoring litigation and patent research. So these are all resources and opportunities for developing economies. And I'm sure some of you will already know about that, and some of you even will join some of those companies that outsourced. Like in the past, like manufacturing and services were kind of competitive, and especially in the classical economical theory, like the services were seen as not very important or not creating much value for the economy, but this has been changing. So there is a famous, like the smile curve of Ramudambi that shows the different activities, and the activities that create the most value for companies are actually services, like marketing, R&D, design. So these are all services, but they create the most of the value for companies. And I want to share some statistics about the US to show you the potential of services. Right now, like 60% of the global employment comes from the service sector. So it is more than the manufacturing sector. So we usually focus, like governments usually focus on manufacturing, but 60% of the employment comes from service. And some statistics about the US, United States has potential to more than double its annual exports of services annually, creating an additional $800 billion. So there is a huge potential in this new century about the services. And if you look at the increase in service exports versus manufacturing export, the blue line represents the manufacturing exports and the red line is for the service export. And as you can see, service export have been increasing much faster than manufacturing export, which shows a great potential as a result of globalization. I also want to talk about the globalization and consumers. So all of our consumers, all of our customers, right? We go and do shopping, buy something, and I think one of the things that have changed is the increasing power of customers. So customers have much more power compared to the past. And that is as a result of, again, globalization, you can say technology, you can say information access. For instance, as a consumer, I have a lot more access to information. Like I was in Turkey, I was thinking about what I'm gonna do when I go to India for this conference. And I have no idea about India. I have not been here, but I just Google India, Bangalore, places to see, etc. I came up with a trip advisor, I'm sure you have used it. And you can get a lot of information about all the places that you can see, like the positive reviews, negative reviews, about the different tour companies. So this was not possible like 20, 30 years ago. Maybe you had to find an Indian friend or something like that to get that information. But today, it's just a matter of a couple of minutes. You go into Google and access the information about all the world. So, and as a consumer, this gives me a lot of power, right? I know what company offers what. And that's a great change. And as a result, like companies should be more careful about customer satisfaction. Because if you are not happy about a service or a product, you can go and write negative reviews. And these reviews are seen by all of the world. Like if you want to access that information, it's available. Increasing communication between customers, again, it's about the reviews and other things. I don't want to go in a lot more detail. And as I said, like consumers have access to more alternatives and more information. So as a result, companies should be much more careful about customer satisfaction. So another thing that I want to mention is the CSR. So globalization has a lot of, as you know, like there are a lot of protests about the globalization, and there is an argument that it's not good for poor people. It increases the income inequality, and it also has negative effects on environment. So these are controversial issues. So there are both sides of the view, but what I want to say is it has become much more important for companies to behave ethically, to engage in CSR initiatives. Because when a company has engaged in an unethical behavior, when a company, for instance, hires a child labor, or when a company harms the environment, it gets the attention from the media and from the public, and it spreads very quickly. So that's why, in order to have a good brand image, a good reputation, you need to be very careful about this thing. And a couple of recommendations that I have for companies, like you need to have an ethical code of conduct, you need to engage in CSR initiatives, like work with NGOs. For instance, I had just visited an NGO called APSA in Bangalore. Like they were working with the poor kids and like ladies, young ladies, etc. So these kind of things should be supported by the companies. And these are the companies with best CSR initiatives. So again, in 20, 30 years ago, there was not such a ranking. So which company is the best in terms of corporate social responsibility? Now there are rankings about this. And as you can see, like Google, Microsoft, Walt Disney are ranked here. Again, increasing importance of becoming environmentally friendly. Like you can see some examples. For the interest of time, I will not go into details of those, but these are like Walmart, GE, DuPont, Tesco, Toyota. All of these companies are trying to become more environmentally friendly because there is a demand for that. So as a company, if you want to differentiate, if you want to be a global company, again, you need to be careful about that. And these are, again, a ranking about the best environmental friendly company and the worst companies in terms of the environment. Last thing that I want to mention is the importance of small companies. Again, in the past, most of the business all around the world used to be dominated by large multinational corporations. But that has been changing as well. Of course, like if you are a small company in a developing country and compete with the multinational company, you have a lot of challenges. But what I want to mention is we have a lot of good examples of small companies and entrepreneurs become very successful companies. Think about Facebook that most of you are using, right? Think about the Uber in California, California-based company. It has no assets, not much value, but its market value is like billions of dollars. So what I want to say, it has become a lot easier, especially for high-tech small companies, to become successful and to be leaders in the global trade. So again, this has been as a result of the globalization, as a result of the technology. So if you have any idea or if you have any entrepreneurial skill, I would definitely recommend you to take some risk and go for it. So that's again something that globalization has bring. So I want to conclude, the world has become much more integrated. Developing countries have much more important role in the world trade picture. The world is changing. Technology has changed a lot of things. So as a company or as an individual, for you, you need to take advantage of globalization to be more successful and to be successful both for your careers and also for the companies that you work. Thank you.